I never imagined that my daily kindness to a homeless man would lead to a life-changing surprise. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started as a regular morning, the sun creeping over the skyline, casting shadows that danced along the sidewalk. I grabbed my coffee, feeling its warmth seep into my palms, and strolled down the familiar street. That's when I saw him, James. He sat by the entrance of the grocery store, his unkempt beard catching crumbs of his last meal. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and the hollows of his cheeks sank deep with despair. My heart always tightened at the sight. I approached, forcing a smile through the lump in my throat. "Hey, James. How are you today?" I asked, though every time I dreaded the answer, his eyes flickered with something. Was it hope? Or just the remnants of a dream long gone? I handed him a sandwich, my stomach tightening with every bite he took. I noticed the way he held it, as if it were fragile, and I felt this strange connection forming, a bond of shared humanity. Yet, something whispered to me that his story was larger than I could grasp. A week went by, and every morning I returned. James always waited, looking a bit more gaunt each time, but also more mysterious. Some mornings I'd hear him muttering to himself, his voice shaking against the gentle hum of the streets. Other times, glimpses of laughter would escape him as he interacted with the little kids who approached, listening to his wild tales of adventure, but it wasn't just his words that baffled me. One morning, James reached into his pocket, pulled out a small, ornate box, and stared at me with wide eyes. "This is for you," he murmured, but I shook my head. He insisted, his hands trembling. The box was ancient, carved with peculiar symbols. A chill raced down my spine when I thought about what it could hold. "James, what is this?" I asked, panic clawing at my chest. His silence screamed louder than his words, as if he were guarding a secret too painful to share. I hesitated, but curiosity gnawed at me. Just as I reached for it, a loud crash shattered the air, a car swerved, skidding to a halt mere feet away from us. I stumbled back, heart racing, and in that moment of chaos, the box slipped from his hands, crashing to the ground. As it hit the pavement, a strange shimmer enveloped it, blinding me for a split second. The world paused. Suddenly, people were gasping, others shouting in confusion, but all I could see was James's horrified expression. What was hidden in that box? What power did it hold? When the light faded, I looked around, dazed. The street was silent. James was gone, just disappeared like mist, leaving only the box lying there, unscathed. My breath caught. What just happened? I could feel the weight of the unanswered questions settling in my chest. What had I stumbled into? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood frozen, heart pounding in my chest, the echoes of the chaos still swirling around me like the fading echoes of a distant storm. The ornate box lay motionless on the ground, its intricately carved surface reflecting the early morning light. Each symbol seemed to glimmer, pulling my gaze into its depths, as if beckoning me to unlock whatever secrets it held. James was gone, leaving an ache where his presence once was. The haunting question trembled in the back of my mind: who was he? I glanced around the street, disoriented by the sudden stillness. People were beginning to stir, murmuring among themselves, but to me, they were mere shadows crossing the threshold of my bewildering reality. I felt a weighty silence pressing against my ears, and instinctively, I crouched down, fingers brushing the cool surface of the box. The feel of it sent shivers up my spine, and I held my breath as I contemplated the choices before me. Before I could ponder too long, a voice pierced through the fog of confusion. "Hey, are you okay?" A woman rushed towards me, her kind eyes filled with concern. She looked familiar, someone from the neighborhood, always walking her golden retriever. I saw the car almost hit you. That was so close. Yeah, I'm fine, I stammered, tearing my gaze from the box to nod at her. Just, surprised. She crouched beside me, eyeing the box with the same curiosity I had experienced moments ago. What's this? I swallowed hard, wrestling with the urge to share James's story, but the words wouldn't come. I don't know. It belonged to a man, he just vanished. The woman reached for the box, hesitating just a beat before gently lifting it from the ground. Looks old, she remarked, inspecting it with a furrowed brow. You should probably show it to someone. It could be valuable. Valuable? I echoed, my mind racing. Did she think it contained money? Secrets? Something normal? How could I explain that it seemed far more significant than mere worth? What's your name? She asked, her voice softening. Lila, I replied. And you? Sarah. Can I take a look? I promise not to break it. I hesitated, a part of me wanting to keep this mystery wrapped tightly around me, while another wanted to release the burden of uncertainty. After a moment, I nodded, tilting the box toward her. As she studied it, the faintest echo of laughter drifted nearby. I turned to see a small girl with pigtails, clutching a stuffed bunny, staring at us with wide eyes. She was innocent, untouched by the complexities of life. What's that? She piped up, her voice bright and cheerful, cutting sharply through my miasma. Just a special box, I replied, forcing a smile at her. Like a treasure box. Can I see? Careful. Sarah warned, her tone becoming serious as she turned the box over in her hands. We have to make sure it's safe. Just then, a loud noise erupted from the alley across the street, pulling all our attention. A man emerged, his unkempt appearance matching the shadows of despair that hung in the air. My heart seized. He looked so much like James, ragged, weary, yet with a trace of familiarity. James! I yelled, rushing toward him. My heart raced as I pushed the thoughts of the woman and child behind me. But as he turned, my hope crumbled. It wasn't him. Just another lost soul trapped by circumstance, a mirror reflecting the struggles I had only begun to comprehend. Hey, you! He barked, eyes squinting in the bright light. What do you think you're doing with that? His gaze flickered toward the box, suspicion evident in his voice. Sarah jumped to her feet, protectively clutching the ornate box against her chest. It's just an old box. She snapped, surprising me with her fierceness. Old or not, it's not yours. He shouted back, advancing toward us. Fear rippled through me. I sensed danger, this man was desperate and volatile. I stepped in front of Sarah, heart racing as I tried to gauge his intentions. No one is taking anything from anyone, I said steadily, trying to sound braver than I felt. Just walk away, he hissed, a spark of madness in his eyes. But I couldn't back down. Something about that box, about James, had intertwined our fates, and I couldn't let it slip away. As the confrontation escalated, I felt a weighty presence behind me. It was like fate was shifting the air around us. The child tugged at my sleeve, her innocent gaze turning up to me, filled with unspoken wisdom. In that moment, time stilled, and I understood that this was more than just a box, it was an anchor connecting all our stories. And just as the tension reached its peak, strangers came flooding onto the street, their voices commanding and urgent. Step away from her. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by the chaos and the potential fallout. My heart pounded as I clutched my breaths. I was about to plunge into something deeper, something I might not be able to navigate alone, with the identities of the people around me shifting into layers of complexity. The world felt as if it were teetering on the edge of something monumental, each heartbeat echoing a reality that could pull back a curtain and expose truths long buried. As I opened my eyes, I felt the box tremble in Sarah's hands like it was awakening, ready to reveal its secrets. I needed to understand the intersection of our stories, but dread coiled within me, whispering that some doors were never meant to be opened. What lay inside that ornate box? And what if the answer was something I could never be prepared for? The streets felt alive with a tension that was almost palpable, as if the air itself were charged with unspoken stories and hidden secrets. My fingers brushed against the edges of the ornate box, feeling its cool surface as I tried to grasp what was happening. Everything felt disjointed like pieces of a puzzle scattered too far apart to form any coherent picture. As the tension in the air crackled, Sarah remained close, her eyes darting between me and the man who had confronted us. The crowd that had emerged seemed like a distant wave of humanity, momentarily stepping in to disrupt our fragile equilibrium. Yet, their arrival felt more like a mirage, illuminating the chaos rather than easing it. I forced myself to breathe, drawing deep breaths to ground myself amidst the cacophony of uncertainty. The little girl still tugged at my sleeve, her soft voice a soothing balm amidst the storm. "Are you a superhero?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "You stood up for that lady." I smiled at her, the innocence in her question stirring a flicker of warmth in my chest. "No, just a person trying to do the right thing," I replied, though I felt anything but. In truth, I was scared, anxious, and lost. The weight of the moment bore down on me, and I could feel the cracks in my resolve spreading ever wider. "Hey, it's okay," Sarah said softly, breaking my spiraling thoughts. "We're not going to let him take it." But even as she spoke, I felt the man's anger simmering just beneath the surface. He was cornered in a way that made him dangerous. I could see that flicker of desperation burning in his eyes. It frightened me, but what frightened me even more was the sharp awareness that our lives had become inextricably linked, bound together by this very moment of confrontation. Suddenly, a comforting voice broke through the rising tide of tension. An elderly man stepped forward from the crowd, his face lined with age but softened by wisdom. "Let us all take a step back," he suggested calmly, his gaze resting fiercely on the stranger. "No one wants trouble here." His presence acted as a tether to sanity, a reminder that amidst the chaos, compassion could still prevail. The confrontational man's posture eased, if only slightly. It was clear he was struggling with something deeper than anger, a gnawing hunger that had led him to lash out in desperation. "Would you like something to eat?" the older man continued, his voice steady and gentle. "We can help you find a warm meal." For a brief moment, silence fell, as the man paused, his eyes narrowing in contemplation. The possibility of a simple act of kindness seemed to pull him from the brink of his rage. "Get away from me!" he barked suddenly, taking a step back, but the fire in his voice was dimming, replaced by something almost sad. "You don't know me. You don't know anything." I longed to reach out, to offer something more, a piece of my soul or some fragment of understanding that might help bridge the gap of uncertainty. But I stayed rooted, realizing too late that I had no words that could heal. Suddenly, the elderly man turned toward me, his gaze penetrating as he took a step forward. "And what about you, young lady? What do you truly want out of all this?" The weight of that question hung between us, an invisible thread weaving through my tangled thoughts. What was I hoping to gain from this chaotic moment? Answers about James? Closure? A name for the nameless aching confusion spiraling inside my heart. From behind me, Sarah's voice broke in. "She's trying to help," she said fiercely, her grip tightening around the box as if it were her own anchor. "It's important." I nodded, feeling the strength in her words blend with the emotions swirling around me. "I just want to understand," I admitted softly, catching the man's reluctant gaze. "I want to know why we're all here, why this matters." The man shifted slightly, his expression faltering as if he were shedding layers of anger for something more vulnerable, something more real. "What does it matter?" he sneered, but the bitterness rang hollow, almost as if he were trying to convince himself more than anyone else. Suddenly, an unanticipated sound erupted from the box in Sarah's hands, a low hum that resonated through the air. We all turned, startled, eyes wide in disbelief. The symbols carved into the wood glowed faintly, casting gentle light that illuminated the darkness around us. In that split second, I felt the entire crowd inhale, the air charged with expectancy and disbelief. Someone gasped, a sharp intake of breath that punctuated the quiet, reverberating with the weight of what we might unravel. The man's eyes widened, enchantment and fear warring within. The little girl stepped forward bravely, clutching her stuffed bunny, peering up at the box with the same curiosity that reminded me of innocence. "What's in it?" she whispered, her voice holding the weight of countless possibilities. As we huddled closer, drawn toward the mystery of the ornate box, I felt the impending rush of revelation closing in one that would likely redefine all our lives. But just as I reached for it, fingers yearning to touch the pulsating energy radiating from its depths, the box trembled violently in Sarah's grasp, as if protesting against the fate we sought to unveil. The world tilted, our breaths caught, and then everything shattered. Before I could comprehend the depth of that moment, something explosive surged from the box, enveloping us in a blinding light that twisted reality itself. As darkness enveloped my vision, I heard a single thought resonating in my mind: this was just the beginning. The sensation of falling stretched and pulled at my very being, a freefall through shadowed memories and faded dreams. I could hear the echoes of muffled voices, the jagged edges of fear blending with something comforting, something familiar. It was like I was drifting between worlds, suspended in a kaleidoscope of emotions that danced at the fringes of my consciousness. When the brilliance receded and the world rushed back into focus, I found myself sprawled on cold concrete, disoriented and breathless. The glaring sun pierced through the haze above, a warm reminder that the chaos of the previous moment had transformed into something bewilderingly serene. I felt the soft rustle of something against my side. Sarah lay beside me, dazed but unharmed, her expression a mix of wonder and confusion. "Are you okay?" I croaked, my voice cracking as I pushed myself upright. The thrum of energy still echoed within me, an undercurrent that suggested the box wasn't finished with us yet. I think so," Sarah stammered, gripping the box tightly. "What was that?" We slowly scanned our surroundings, and what we saw felt surreal. We were no longer on the familiar streets we had known moments before. Instead, we stood in a vast, verdant park, a hidden sanctuary blooming with vibrant wildflowers, the air rich with the scent of jasmine and earth. The sounds of the city were both distant and muted. Here, nature reigned supreme, unfurling in vibrant greens beneath a sky painted in brilliant hues of blue. Yet it wasn't just the beauty of this place that brewed confusion within me, it was the figures that dotted the landscape. People walked freely, children laughed, and families picnicked in the background, each face depicting a calmness that clashed with the chaos we had just escaped. I blinked hard, a lump forming in my throat. Could this all be real? "It feels like a dream," I whispered, half hoping it was, or maybe a trick. Suddenly, the little girl with the stuffed bunny burst into our sight, her eyes sparkling with something more than innocence now. "You did it!" she exclaimed, bounding toward us with an energy that brightened the air. "You opened it. You opened the magical box." "Magical?" I echoed, exchanging a glance with Sarah that spoke of dawning understanding mingled with apprehension. "Don't you feel it?" The little girl spun in delight, her laughter ringing like bells amidst the lushness. She seemed untouched by fear, standing at the edge of bravery with arms wide, inviting us into this uncharted territory. Before I could respond, a figure approached, tall and cloaked, the sun glinting off an ornate silver staff adorned with runes I couldn't decipher. The closer he came, the more the world around us seemed to shift, brushing away the facade of normality and revealing an undercurrent of something greater. "Welcome," he greeted, his voice rich and timeless, echoing like the soft whisper of wind through the trees. "You've stepped into a realm of potential, a place where kindness and courage can shape reality." His eyes locked onto mine, they shimmered like pools of endless stars, reflecting fear, hope, and an invitation wrapped in enigma. "Who are you?" I managed, feeling small yet invigorated. "I am a keeper of the balance," he said, his gaze scanning the park as if weighing its very existence. "Much has shifted since you opened the box. Your act of compassion, your willingness to bridge connections in the chaos has sparked something far beyond you. I felt a stirring in my chest, an acknowledgement of truth within his words. My encounter with the man, my instinct to help Sarah and the desperate stranger, it all coalesced into a singular purpose that had somehow set this transformation into motion. But what does it mean? Sarah asked urgently, her brow wrinkled in worry. What will happen to us? Your journey isn't over, it has just begun. There is a balance that must be restored, an understanding that transcends the ordinary. He paused, leaning slightly closer, as though sharing a sacred secret. Your kindness, your compassion, they hold the key, but not without. Grappling with the shadows that linger at the edges of this new world. A flicker of doubt ignited in my heart. The phrase grappling with shadows clung tightly to my thoughts. I could almost feel the tendrils of fear curling at the corners of my mind. What kind of darkness awaited us in this reality, and how could we ever find the strength to prevail? Before I could respond, the vibrations from the box shifted again, pulling Sarah's and my attention back to it. It pulsed with a newfound energy, casting rippling waves of light that surrounded us, illuminating the figures around us, revealing depths to their faces that beckoned familiarity, faces of people I had known, friends and family long lost, each reflecting fragments of my past. Who are they? I breathed, taking an apprehensive step closer. My heart raced, anticipation mixing with dread. There are bonds yet unrenowned, he replied, his tone deep, almost echoing, as though the essence of the world itself resonated within. Choose wisely, for the path ahead will test your resolve. Each soul you find holds a part of your journey, and only through them will the balance be restored. As the figures started to take shape, their gazes locked onto us, I felt a rush of emotions crest like a wave on the shore: love, loss, and an overwhelming sense of urgency. Would they understand my choices, my fears? More importantly, could I face the depths of my heart that had long been buried beneath the mundane noise of everyday life? But before I could deliberate further, a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision, dark and nebulous. It loomed like an uninvited guest at a party, a stark contrast against the lush backdrop, the very embodiment of the whispers I'd heard about grappling with shadows. Get away from them! Sarah shouted, stepping in front of me, determination sparking in her eyes. As I prepared to follow her lead, the air thickened with tension. There, between the light and the darkness, I understood that we were on the precipice of a reckoning, facing a choice that would shape the destinies of not just us but everyone bound in this complex tapestry of connection, and in that moment of clarity, realizing that the fate of our intertwined lives hinged upon our next steps, a quiet voice deep within me whispered, "This is only the beginning." I stood frozen, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, my mind racing through the countless decisions I had made leading up to this moment. The towering shadow that had manifested before us exuded an unsettling presence, a reminder of the struggles I had tried to forget. I clutched the box tighter, willing it to reveal its secrets, to give me some sign of hope in the face of this encroaching darkness. Sarah's fierce stance before me filled me with both admiration and fear. "You don't have to protect me," I whispered, uncertain if the words were meant for her or myself. The shadow shifted, rippling like oil across water, and suddenly the figure within it materialized, a man, gaunt and draped in tattered clothing, a haunting familiarity washing over me. He raised his hand, his fingers long and sharp, eyes sinking into mine like stones dropped into a deep well. "Seth," he rasped, voice crackling like dry leaves. My breath caught. This was not just a figment conjured from my subconscious, I knew him all too well. The grin that once accompanied his laughter now curled into a twisted smirk. My heart ached for the memories, the warmth of shared moments tangled with loss and regret. "Why now?" I gasped, witnessing the nightmare I had long tried to run from. "Why return as this?" "Because you never truly left," he replied, his voice darkening, embodying the confluence of our unresolved past. "You balance on the edge of light and shadow, tethered to all that you've wished to forget. Your kindness acted as a compass into the heart of this place, but shadows do not release their hold so easily." With every word he spoke, I could feel the weight of his presence pressing down on me, reminding me of the guilt that had rooted itself deep within my soul. And it wasn't just him, it was the collective failures, the feelings of helplessness that had haunted me since the fateful day I had walked away. No, I said, shaking my head defiantly, the truth erupting from my core. No more excuses. I won't let you pull me back down into that darkness. But he only laughed, a hollow, rattling sound that ricocheted around the park, mingling with the distant laughter of the children and the blooming colors of flowers. Your resolve is commendable, but you cannot outrun the essence of your own heart. The kindness you've shown is a feeble light against the shadows that lurk within, he said, his eyes flickering with malice. You think you've helped others? That you can escape the pain of your past? You've merely broken the first veil. Around me, the park dimmed as if responding to his menace. I glanced at Sarah, who still stood grounded like a pillar, her faith unwavering even in the face of this nightmarish apparition. As I watched her, a memory flashed before me, one fleeting moment of kindness that had unknowingly created a ripple in the fabric of my life. I could almost hear the faint echo of gratitude from the homeless man I had helped just days before, a reminder of a simple choice that could change everything. Wherever I was, I needed to believe in the echoes of that kindness, the threads that wove together our existences, fortifying the balance of this new reality. The weight of my emotions surged like a tide, fear did its best to drag me back, but lingering hope whispered that perhaps I had power and connection. That a flicker of light sparked within me, a warmth that pulsed like the gentle beat of a heart, igniting a flare of defiance against the shadows. I know what I've done, I said, my voice rising, emboldened. And I refuse to let you take me back. I'll embrace my failures, my losses, and I will navigate through this darkness. You don't own my story anymore. Seth's laugh curdled into anger, and he suddenly lunged toward me, an unfurling wave of darkness colliding with my light. The very air shifted, crackling with energy. The Keeper's voice broke through the chaos, strong and clear. Stoke the fires of your memory, cast the shadows into the light. The balance depends on your willingness to confront what you've buried. In that moment of clarity, I realized I was not alone. The many faces gathered around me were not just specters of the past but fragments of my life, reflections of every kindness I had extended and every moment where I had found the courage to face my demons. It was as if they bubbled to the surface, inviting me to commune with them once more. As Seth's shadow loomed closer, desperation clawed at me for a solution. I extended my hand toward Sarah, our fingers linking instinctively, a breath of solidarity amidst the chaos. Help me remember, I urged her, and I felt her strength seep into my core. She nodded, eyes shimmering with determination, and together we turned to face the darkness, our resolve swelling into a palpable force. Suddenly, the figures around us began to dissolve, swirling with energy, breathing life back into my fading memories. They surged up into my consciousness, a vivid montage of kindness shared, hands touched, tears shed. With a deafening roar, the darkness collided with our light, and the world around us pulsed with blinding intensity. In that moment, I realized that I was not just fighting for myself but for all the connections that brought meaning to my existence. It was there, at the intersection of pain and healing, that I felt a surge of unexpected kindness ripple through the air, binding us together. But just as the light began to coalesce around us, just as hope surged and the shadows flickered, the world froze, caught in a heartbeat. That a chilling voice reverberated through the park, slicing through the moment. You think you can conquer your past, but shadows never forget, they only wait for the right moment to strike. As the shadows thickened, a figure emerged from their depths, a figure I had long tried to shield from my memory, a familiar face that sent icy tendrils of dread through my heart. With that revelation, I felt everything shift, balance tipping into chaos again, plunging us deeper into this uncharted territory, a revelation that everything I had fought for could come crashing down in an instant. And as the edges of reality blurred around us, I realized the journey to restore the balance had only just begun, the stakes now higher than ever before. The shadows writhed and twisted around us, a dark tide threatening to engulf the fragile hope we had kindled. My heart raced, partially from fear and partially from the realization that this looming figure could shatter everything I had held dear. I strained to gather my thoughts, desperate to make sense of the chaos as the face materialized before me, a face I had mourned, believed lost forever. Lila. The whisper felt like ice against my skin. The air around us thickened, laden with memories I had buried deep, remnants of laughter and warmth now twisted into sharp pangs of regret. She stood there, her once vibrant expression now clouded with sorrow, eyes reflecting the deep abyss that lay hidden beneath. "You left me," she said, her voice dripping with betrayal. "You walked away the moment I needed you the most." "No." I protested, but the weight of her accusation crushed the words in my throat. "I thought I was saving myself." "Saving yourself?" She spat, the edges of her form flickering like a flame caught in the wind. "You think that running from your past absolves you of your guilt? It only strengthens the chains that bind you." As her words ripped through me, I felt the ground beneath us tremble, resonating with the turmoil inside my heart. I glanced at Sarah, her steadfast presence like an anchor in the storm. She could feel the dread binding us, the realization dawning in her eyes that the shadows were not just manifestations of my fears but echoes of real pain that in that moment, I felt the air crackle with the weight of our shared history. Lila's anguished expression filled my vision, reminding me of every choice I had made, every time I had faltered in my compassion. Most haunting of all was the memory of that last moment, her pleading eyes, flickering in the dim light, as I stepped away, closing the door on all that we had cherished. "Lila, please," I was lost. The apology bubbled up from some deep place within me, raw and unrefined. "I didn't know how to help you, I thought I would only drag you down with me." "Your fear will consume you, Seth," she replied, her voice softer now, a mere whisper on the wind. "But it doesn't have to. You can choose to remember to confront the truth." In the pit of my stomach, a glimmer of what once was flickered, a warmth swelling in contrast to the frigid darkness surrounding me. I thought of the homeless man I had helped, the joy reflected in his eyes, and how each interaction was a chance to bridge the gulf of despair. Maybe kindness wasn't just a fleeting moment, but a path through the shadows, a thread weaving us back into the tapestry of life. Together, I urged, grasping for that spark of connection. "We can remember and heal, Lila. I don't want to lose you again, not to the darkness, not to my past. We can break free from this." As my heart raced with fervor, the shadows around us seemed to pause, waiting for a response, an invitation to rally against the darkness that sought to isolate and extinguish our flame. Sarah nodded, her grip tightening on my hand, fortifying my resolve against the approaching gale of despair. Lila's expression softened briefly, an imperceptible flicker of hope before the shadows surged, trying to whisk her away. "But the darkness won't let go so easily," she warned, voice shaking as if pulling from even deeper shadows. "Your past is not just yours. It lingers in the lives of others, those you left behind." In that beat of uncertainty, my thoughts spiraled to the countless strangers whose eyes I had met and passed. The repercussions of my indifference came rushing in, painting my past choices in shades of gray. The impact of those moments, my reluctance to lean in, my fear of vulnerability had rippled out like stones thrown into still water. Suddenly, the shadows coiled tighter, their tendrils snaking toward my throat, choking my voice into silence. It was in that insidious moment of desperation that I caught a flash of movement from the corner of my eye, a fleeting shadow darting through the trees, a figure I couldn't quite make out. "Do you see?" Lila called, desperation edging her voice. "You're not alone, but you have to confront every aspect of your past, the ones you've helped and the ones you left behind. The choices that seem insignificant now carry weight you cannot ignore." As her words struck deep, that figure materialized, an old woman unwrapped in layers of time-worn clothing, leaning on a weathered cane, eyes gleaming with wisdom and a familiarity that sent unease rippling through me. "Help me," I croaked, voice hoarse against the shadows. "What do I do?" She smiled gently, her gaze deep and piercing. "You face what you fear most, dear. For the light to flourish, the shadows must not just be conquered, they must be understood." With the weight of her words anchoring me, fear twisted into sorrow. It was not enough to simply confront the shadows. I craved to understand the pain I had caused and to seek forgiveness for both myself and the lives I had unwittingly impacted. But just as this realization coalesced into newfound strength, the surrounding shadows shuddered, growing denser and threatening to pull the old woman into their depths. "Choose wisely, Seth," she warned, her voice fading into an echo. The balance is shifting, and the truth may reveal more than you can bear. As the shadows surged forward, pulling everything into chaotic oblivion, I realized the fight had escalated to a level I had never anticipated. The looming figure, all its manifestations, was far more than just a reflection of my past. It was an embodiment of the weight I carried for every life I'd touched, every life I hadn't saved, and there, on the cusp of all I had feared, I stood poised between darkness and light, teetering on the edge of revelation, ready to plunge into the depths once more, confronted by the realities that had shadowed me. But before I could leap, one last whip of darkness obscured my vision as the park bent and crumbled around us, revealing hidden truths and unearthing buried connections, leaving me grasping at the brink of everything I thought I knew, moments away from confronting the final unveiling that would change everything I believed about who I was and who I could become. The world spun as the ground became unsteady beneath my feet, vanishing in a shroud of thick shadows that coiled around me. It felt as though I was being pulled down into a bottomless pit, where the weight of my past rushed in like a tidal wave, ready to drown me. Each fragment of memory sliced at me, jagged and raw, until I could no longer distinguish between the torment of the shadows and the tumult within my own heart. "Lila!" I called out, desperation clawing at my chest. But the darkness swallowed her voice, erasing what little hope had flickered moments ago. I remembered the old woman, the way her gaze had pierced through the blackness as if she held the key to my salvation, and yet, she too was being consumed. As the shadows closed in, tendrils wrapping tighter around my limbs, I thought of the homeless man I had recently helped, Jonah. He had been the first person I really reached out to after years of isolation, a connection forged by simple acts of kindness. And the tremor of that moment was still fresh in my mind, where he had looked at me, not with the scorn of someone lost, but with gratitude so profound it had cracked the facade I had built around my heart. Suddenly, I felt a flicker of warmth amidst the choking darkness. A memory from earlier that day rose to the surface. Jonah's laughter danced through my thoughts, bright and pure. I could hear him recounting stories of his life, of dreams once cherished and paths not taken. "You can bring light to my darkness, son," he had said with a heartfelt smile, eyes glinting with unshed tears. "Sometimes, kindness is all we have." In that moment of clarity, I understood kindness was not a shield against my past, it was the path through it. I had been so focused on my own cravings for forgiveness that I had forgotten about the power of connection, the way it could change not just my life, but the lives of those around me. Jonah had reminded me of that light within myself, the longing for something greater than fleeting kindness. Drawing strength from this realization, I began to push back against the shadows. The darkness hissed and writhed like a living entity, threatening to swallow me whole. But I allowed the warmth of my memories of Jonah, of Lila, to wrap around my heart like a beacon. "Enough!" I shouted into the void, my voice rising defiantly against the chaos. "I will not be defined by my fear anymore. I will confront the choices that haunt me." And just as I committed to that truth, a burbling, golden light emerged at the edges of the darkness. My heart surged as I focused on the warmth radiating from within. The shadows recoiled, writhing like snakes caught in a sudden blaze. Then, with a sickening jolt, the darkness shifted, forming shapes before me, the faces of those I had helped, the customers in the cafe that had provided me a paycheck, the passerby whom I had ignored. They all emerged, drawn from the depths of my conscience. Each face mirrored back the consequences of my actions, woven together in a complex web of empathy and neglect. "Why didn't you see us?" A voice called from within the crowd, one I recognized as part of a collective shame. A woman with hollow eyes stood there, fingers curling into fists. "You chose your comfort over the lives around you. You embraced your fears while we withered in the cold." Pain coursed through me as fresh waves of regret threatened to drown me again. I tried to speak, to form an apology, but the reality of my choices weighed heavily. There were no easy answers, no profound methods to magically erase the missed connections and turn backs. The shadows rolled back and forth, a tempestuous sea of guilt and regret, echoed through the ensemble of people standing before me, and just when I felt the despair beginning to overshadow the flickering light of hope within me, Jonah's voice rang out, shattering the silence. "No one is perfect, Seth. But kindness is a choice we must continue to make. You have the means to build bridges now. Stand tall. As I focused on Jonah's wisdom, a single truth radiated through my being: kindness, however small, connects us all, grounding us amidst chaos. I looked at the faces of those from my past, and I felt a profound sense of determination bubble within me. I will not turn away anymore, I declared, each word pouring from my soul, echoing against the darkness. I will learn from this, and I will reach out to those who are struggling. The shadows twisted in chaos, steam blowing out from the crevices as they began to recede, momentarily shaken by my vow. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a new presence emerging, a figure cloaked in darkness, with a smile painted wicked and flawed. It felt oddly familiar, drawing whispers from the shadows that curled around, beckoning me, fingers trembling. I felt the very foundations of my resolve quake as recognition slashed through my defiance, revealing the haunting figure of my past, the very essence of my shame incarnate before me. It was someone I had thought lost, a person whose existence threatened to unravel the tenuous bond one had begun to forge between light and darkness. And as their gaze settled upon me, promises of light and the echoes of my past converged, I realized I was not just facing my regrets, but the remnants of hope and sorrow entwined in a dance of fate. I stood on the edge, aware now that my journey had just begun. The test of courage awaited. The shadows had not fully retreated, and the discoveries lurking in the depths were more intense than I had ever imagined. The figure stepped closer, revealing features I had once cherished and yet had tried to forget, a face deeply etched in pain, eyes that had once sparkled with laughter turned into glistening pools of loss. Seth, they breathed, a ghost from my past rising anew. You thought you could escape me? Laura, I gasped, the name slipping from my lips like a prayer turned against me. Time folded in on itself, shoving aside the walls I had so carefully crafted around my memories. What are you doing here? She laughed, but it was hollow, driven by bitterness that carved deep grooves into her once vibrant smile. You think you can distance yourself from the choices you made? From me? Each word dripped with accusation, closing in around me like the shadows I had fought to dispel them. My heart pounded loudly in my chest, an erratic rhythm that mirrored the chaos erupting within my mind. Laura had been my closest friend, my confidant, until the fateful day when my selfishness had torn us apart. The day I chose convenience over connection. I wanted to reach out, to explain, to take back the anguish I had caused. I didn't mean for it to end like that, Laura. You mean you didn't want to face the consequences, she interrupted, venom in her tone. The crowd of faces around us rippled with collective remorse, echoes of authenticity intermixed with the sobering weight of our pasts. Did you really think you could ignore the pain you caused and carry on? Tears pricked my eyes, blurring the outlines of the familiar shapes that had once filled my world with laughter and warmth. I've been trying to change. I've been reaching out to others to make things right. My plea trembled, sincerity battling the backlash of memories I could not hide from. Is that what Jonah was, then? A distraction? She asked, a spark of vulnerability flickering through her accusation. You think you can absolve your guilt by helping others? Laura stepped further into the light encroaching upon me, the flicker of warmth I had felt began to dim. You're still running from yourself, Seth. With each word, the tether binding me to hope began fraying, the shadows coiling closer, whispering of despair. Yet, in the back of my mind, I clung to Jonah's wisdom. I remembered our connection, the moments spent in shared understanding. Kindness, I thought desperately, had a way of threading through the darkness. Yes, I admitted, igniting a small flame of courage within. I'm trying. I know it's imperfect, but kindness is a start, isn't it? A way to break free. There was a fire in my soul, a longing that refused to surrender fully to despair. Each moment I had extended myself to others was a step toward redemption, and I'd seen glimmers of light reflected in their eyes. Laura's expression softened for the briefest moment, and for a heartbeat, it felt like our old friendship had been reignited. But then her smile faltered, unraveling as the weight of shared history crashed against us. Then you must face your real demons, Seth. They will not let you go so easily. As her voice trailed off, it was then that I noticed Jonah standing at the fringe of the encroaching shadows, his eyes wide with concern. I could see the kindness that had once linked him to me, the same strength that shielded him from his own demons. My heart surged not entirely from regret, but an ember of hope smoldering beneath the ashes of despair. "Laura," I began with a newfound clarity, "I don't want to dwell in the shadows anymore. We've lost too much, and I refuse to lose you too." I stepped towards her, the pull of connection wrapping around me like a lifeline. "I want to make things right. No more running away." But just as she seemed to waver, mulling over my words, the figure that had haunted me began to reform once more, shifting between shadows. "You think apologies are enough?" it hissed, resonating through the murmurs of those around us. "You cannot wish away the past, Seth. It will always be a part of you." With that, a ripple of energy surged through me. "Then I will carry it," I shouted, embracing the truth that had tangled within. "I will carry it and learn from it and share my journey, not just hide away in shame." But the encroaching darkness laughed, a twisted melody that seemed to pull Laura back into its thrall. "You are not finished yet, Seth. Your real challenge lies ahead," it taunted, the voices of the crowd merging into a cacophony of doubt. Suddenly, the space around us trembled, the shadows swirling in a violent dance. The foundation I had thought I was building began to crack underfoot, and I felt vertigo swallow me whole. The figures of my past merged into a vortex of confusion. The last thing I glimpsed amid the blinding darkness was Laura's haunted gaze, tears pooling in her eyes, a silent plea too loud for words, and with that, the ground fell away beneath me, plunging into a chaos I couldn't escape. A new battle awaited, swirling with layers of hope, regret, and unforeseen revelations. As I slipped into oblivion, I vowed that when I emerged, would carry the light of those connections with me deeper, stronger, and prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. The world dimmed around me, swallowed by a tapestry of shadows that coiled tightly, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I fell through the dark, an endless descent devoid of hope, where whispered insecurities and shattered dreams surrounded me. Just as I braced myself for the harsh landing that I feared would never come, a sudden jolt jolted me awake that I found myself sprawled on a cold sidewalk, the smell of damp concrete and faint traces of smoke filling the air. The sounds of a bustling city reverberated in every direction, cars honking, voices chattering, life continuing without pause. I pushed myself to my feet, disoriented and gasping as fragments of my confrontation with Laura replayed in my mind. "Seth. Are you all right?" The familiar voice snapped me back to the present. Jonah stood a few feet away, brows furrowed with concern. His presence anchored me, a steady lighthouse amid the storm. "What happened? You just vanished." "It's complicated," I muttered, rubbing the back of my neck, the warmth of embarrassment creeping through me. I felt raw, layered in memories and regrets that crisscrossed and tangled. I saw Laura. Everything just crashed together. "Laura?" His gaze turned serious, a hint of understanding weaving through his eyes. "Did you talk about what happened?" I hesitated, the weight of my memories pressing heavily against my chest. "I tried. I really tried to show her I'm not that person anymore." Jonah stepped closer, the compassion radiating from him enveloping me like a warm blanket. "Change takes time, Seth. You know that. What matters is that you're willing to try again. You can't just expect it all to come together in one conversation." With a deep breath, I nodded, my heart pumping with a mixture of dread and hope. But how do I even begin with the consequences of the past I've created? The question hung heavily between us, a bridge too distant to cross. "This is why you reach out to others," he said softly. "You're not on this journey alone. You carry your past, yes, but you also carry the potential to nurture new connections. To bring healing." As Jonah spoke, something emerged from the corner of my eye. A thin man sat on a nearby storefront's steps, his form crumpled and lost. It was the homeless man I'd seen in the neighborhood countless times, often overlooked but somehow always exuding an air of wisdom that intrigued me. Today, he was rummaging through a tattered bag, and despite his dire situation, there was a flicker of light behind his weary expression that I turned to Jonah, a thought sparking in my mind. "You know, I've been meaning to yeah." Jonah prompted, his eyes encouraging. "Maybe I can do something for him," I suggested, guilt and intent weaving together into a plan. "What if I could just start by offering kindness, one small act at a time?" "Definitely," Jonah agreed, a smile breaking through the tension on his face. "That's a great place to start." I approached the man cautiously, each step forward challenging the shadows that threatened to pull me back. "Hi there," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Can I help you with anything?" He looked up, bright eyes flickering to mine. "Just looking for something to eat," he murmured, his voice tinged with weariness. "It's a long day." "Let me grab you something," I said, striding toward the nearby cafe, determined to break the rhythm of my past. Just as I reached the counter, I caught Jonah's eye and gestured for him to join me. "I'll get us some drinks," he said, a spark of enthusiasm threading through his words. As I returned with a sandwich and a banana, I found that the man was now engaged in conversation with another passerby, sharing a laugh that echoed with genuine warmth. I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. In this small moment of connection, perhaps there was a chance for healing, not just for him but also for me. I handed him the food, and he accepted it with a grateful nod. "Thank you, young man. You've no idea how much this means." "Just doing what I can," I replied, feeling lighter with each beat of kindness exchanged. Moments later, Jonah rejoined, two steaming coffees in hand. "I wanted to thank you for what you're doing here," he told the man. "For reminding us how important it is to see beyond our immediate worlds." "I merely exist," the man said, his smile twisting with conviction. "But sometimes, existing is enough to spark hope." Those words settled deep inside me as if carving new pathways in my heart, one small act at a time. I couldn't fix every mistake I made, but I could channel my energy into creating new connections, planting kindness where I could. Yet, just as my silhouette began to shift towards the dawn of this realization, my phone chimed in my pocket. Fishing it out, I looked at the message, a single notification that sent ice coursing through my veins. It was from an unknown number, and my heart raced as the text read, "We need to talk." It's about Laura. A confrontation I thought I had left in the shadows was now surfacing again, the past clawing back into my present. The light I had just begun to kindle flickered like a candle in the wind, leaving me teetering on the brink of discovery and dread. I glanced back at Jonah, feeling that spark of connection fade amid the urgency of my next choice. "I think I need to go," I said, my voice shaking slightly. The shadows were spreading once again, and deep down, I understood I was not yet free. Standing beneath the unforgiving sky, I felt like I was balancing on the edge of a precipice, teetering between the light I had just begun to embrace and the shadows that continuously threatened to engulf me. The weight of Jonah's kindness anchored me, but that text message ignited a knowing dread, telling me I couldn't escape my past that easily. With each heartbeat, a quiet determination welled inside, fueling the fire. I now recognized kindness was not merely a choice, it was a lifeline, a way to confront the discomfort buried beneath my skin. "Jonah," I said, my voice firm yet vulnerable, "I have to go meet Laura. I don't know what this is going to turn into, but I can't run anymore. I have to face this." His gaze locked onto mine, understanding gleaming in his eyes. "Then go. Just remember that it's okay to open up about how you feel. You've come so far, Seth. Trust in that." With a half-hearted smile and a nod that attempted to mask the anxiety swirling in my gut, I turned away from the warmth of companionship towards the unknown path ahead. As I walked, the buzz of the city faded into the background, the sounds transforming into a disconnected hum that mirrored the chaos inside my heart. The familiar street loomed ahead, memories pressing against me as I neared the cafe where everything had once unraveled. I had spent countless hours there, enveloped in laughter that now echoed like distant whispers, tainted by regret. But today was different. Today was a chance to reclaim the narrative that had spiraled out of my control. Pushing through the cafe door, the warm air wrapped around me like a weary blanket, and I spotted her in the corner, seated among shadows that seemed to cling heavily about her. Laura looked different, marked by time and hardship. Anxiety surged within me, but I took a steadying breath and approached her table, every step feeling like an eternity. "Laura," I started, the name tasting bittersweet on my tongue. "Thank you for coming." "Well, you said we needed to talk, didn't you?" she replied, her manner cool and professional, though I could sense a crack beneath her facade. "What could someone like you possibly need to say to me?" I winced at the defensiveness in her voice, guilt unfurling in the depths of my heart. "I want to apologize for how I left things the day everything came crashing down. I should have been there for you." Deep down, I was scared. "I didn't know how to help, and your answer was to walk away," she shot back, hurt flaring like embers in her eyes. "Do you even understand the consequences of your actions?" Pain surged through me. "I do now. I thought I could escape the darkness by severing the ties that tied us to our past. I didn't see the way that it wrapped around me, how it hardened my heart. I took the easy way out." Her gaze softened for the briefest moment, a mixture of shared history and lingering sorrow. "And what have you done since, Seth? Just help strangers, or are you really trying to change?" "I've learned to reach out again," I admitted, heart pounding. "Each moment of kindness I create, I'm trying to build bridges." Jonah, a man I met, opened my eyes. Through him, I understood that even the small gestures matter. But there's still so much weight in my heart. Laura studied me, the tension between us sparking a life of its own. "You think kindness will wash away the guilt? It's more complicated than that. You can't just fix this with a few good deeds." "No," I said, voice steady now, "I don't expect it to erase anything. But I want to face it. I want to restore the connection we had, even if it means delving into the pain." A long silence filled the space between us, the air heavy with unresolved emotions. As I searched her eyes for a glimmer of understanding, I felt the courage I'd fought for grip me, urging me to dig deeper. "Laura, I'm willing to confront the pain, every consequence of my actions. Can we try to talk this through? Rebuild? What if I can't forgive you?" she asked, vulnerability flooding her words, and I could see the battle waging within her. "Then I'll keep trying until you're ready," I replied, the weight of sincerity anchoring me. "But I won't disappear again. I can't." She inhaled sharply, the muscles in her face softening as she slowly nodded. "You really mean that, don't you?" "Yes, I do. And I'm sorry for everything, sorry I stepped away when you needed me most. I can't rewrite the past, but I promise I'll be here to face the future." With those words, something inside her shifted, the barrier breaking amid the remnants of our shared sorrow. "I've missed you," she whispered, a confession that poured from her heart. The raw honesty ignited something deep within me, illuminating space I thought had become irrevocably buried. Slowly, she extended her hand across the table, and I instinctively reached for it. Our fingers connected, reigniting a bond one had long thought lost. That simple touch stirred a gentle warmth, the kind that could signal the slow return of light amid shadows. "I've missed you too," I murmured, feeling that flicker of hope grow brighter. "And I don't want to let fear guide us anymore." As we spoke, sharing the intricacies of our shared past joys and regrets tangled like thread weaving our lives together, I sensed the light gaining ground against the encroaching dark. Each conversation veered through territories once marked by pain, but shaped by resilience, transforming wounds into lessons. We exchanged laughter, tears, and everything in between. Time slipped away, and as the shadows of the cafe began to stretch beneath the gathering dusk outside, I felt lighter. Perhaps this was the healing I had sought, the understanding that forgiveness did not only reside in one grand gesture but thrived in the shared moments that reaffirmed our humanity. Our connection, once delicate and frayed, glimmered with a renewed vibrancy that defied the shadows. It was as if the world outside had faded, granting us the sanctuary we needed so desperately. When our conversation finally slowed, Laura leaned back, her eyes glistening with a new resolve. "So, what's next for you, Seth? I smiled, the warmth of this moment rekindling the flame of determination in my heart. I won't stop reaching out. I'll continue to seek the light, both for me and for others. But I want to do it with you by my side. As the first stars appeared, I felt the threads I had woven through kindness stitching not just our lives together but also embracing everyone I encountered in my journey. Laura squeezed my hand, and I knew then that home didn't have to reside somewhere distant, it could be right here, in the connection built through shared vulnerability and kindness that I in that fleeting moment. Illuminated by a shimmering hope and an intricate tapestry of second chances, I realized that the darkness had not claimed me. I was no longer fighting alone. As long as I held on to this truth, as long as I chose to embrace vulnerability, the shadows would merely be threads weaving through the light, creating an ever-expanding canvas of connection. That I turned to Laura, and with our hearts intertwined, I whispered, from now on, it's no longer just about surviving through the darkness. We'll walk this path together, finding beauty in every shadow we face. And at that moment, I finally understood the light shone brightest when shared, illuminating not just our paths but all those we would encounter on this incredible journey of life.